Hi everyone, and welcome to Behind the Numbers. My name is Dave Bookbinder, and this is the show where we dig deeper to understand what really matters most in business. Today we're going to have a very interesting deeper dive into the world of business with Doug Howarth, who is the CEO of Hypernomics, Inc. Hey Doug, welcome to Behind the Numbers. Great to have you here.
Dave, thanks so much for having me. I love your show. Thank you for having me on it.
Thank you. So much to talk about here. I'm excited for this conversation, but why don't we start by you just introducing yourself to the audience. Tell them a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into all the fun stuff around Hypernomics.
Again, my name is Doug Howarth, founder of Hypernomics, Inc. I worked in aerospace for about 35 years. And as I left, I came up with this idea of how the market works, how all markets work in multiple dimensions, and that formed the basis of this new discipline that we call Hypernomics. And it's especially appropriate to your show because your show is behind the numbers. This actually shows you what holds the numbers up and what constrains the numbers in a variety of ways.
Yeah, and you're also the author of the book Hypernomics, Using Hidden Dimensions to Solve Unseen Problems. So that's a great segue for you to maybe define what Hypernomics is, Doug, excuse me, I apologize.
Well, Hypernomics takes things that you already know and then rearranges them into views that lets you see how the market works that you wouldn't be able to see without it. So, for example, it turns out that in the housing market, for example, there's certain things that are holding up the prices. And I think we all know that you pay more for square footage and you pay more in the house, you pay more for a lot size that's bigger. This actually shows you how those relationships work on what we call the value side. And then on the demand side, this works out the limit for the housing prices that can happen in any certain area. It works out that this particular methodology works for every industry we've seen outside of just the raw commodities such as gold and iron ore. So it can tell you if you're going to make, say, a business jet, it can tell you what the limit would be over the course of a number of years of how many you could sell based on the price. And it turns out that if you don't understand that data, that you could lose billions of dollars. And this turns out to be very important for a lot of people.
Yeah, and you shared I'll call it a relatable story to help dummy it down for somebody like myself with regard to a washing machine scenario. Would it be beneficial to maybe share some of that with the audience to help them get context around this?
Sure, yeah, I can start with that, and then I can transition to something that's even easier. I can go from my wife back down to ants. So it turns out that the way I came up with this idea was that the wife and I were going out and we had to buy a new washing machine. And so we trudged into the local big box store and walked up to a row of washing machines, and my wife says, I like this machine here. She says, it's got a bigger drum than we have at home. And I thought capacity versus price, that's what you might call a two-dimensional problem. And then she said to me, you only got one delicate cycle at home. I want to have more delicate cycles. And I thought, cycles and capacity versus price. She's up to a 3D problem. So we liked the one machine that we were looking at, and then we went to the next machine up the line, and it had more of everything, including the price. And I asked my wife, I said, what about this one? And she says, it's too expensive. We can't afford it. And I realized in that instant that when we bought that machine, we were going to take the quantity for that machine being sold for that year out 1 unit. And that if, based on what the world was doing, a whole bunch of people were pushing the number of units out for this particular model, and that all the other models would be in the same kind of plane, people buying fewer of the more expensive machines and more of the cheaper machines. So she would add a quantity to the problem. So she was looking at capacity, cycles, price, and quantity. That turns out to be a four-dimensional problem. And that's where the hyper comes in Hypernomics. Hyper means existing in more than 3 dimensions. So my wife was solving a four-dimensional problem in her head. And as I looked around the store, I looked at everybody in all these different departments, and I realized instantly that everybody was doing this all the time in every market they were in. And then after I wrote the book, I happened to be studying. I got done with a trail run, and I was sitting at the end of a trail. I was on the asphalt where I parked my car. I noticed this little reddish-black ant, and I said to myself, well, Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, would study ants. Why can't I for a few minutes? So I started watching this little reddish-black ant, and he starts to turn in a counterclockwise fashion. And he keeps going and going, and he finally traces out 360 degrees, and he's out just a little bit further than he started. And then he goes and fits and starts again, and goes around another 360 degrees, and then another one. And I noticed that when he stops, he's on what are for him little high spots in the asphalt. He's on the top of a pebble, and he's looking around. And I realized to myself, this little guy is doing reconnaissance. And so I raced home and I typed in ant reconnaissance into a search bar, and it turns out that ants do recon, and they look for things in houses, their little house where they're going to make a new domicile. They look for the amount of floor area they can get, the headroom, because they don't want it to be too high or too low, the cleanliness, and they want it to be away from the neighbors. They don't want any hostiles. And so it turns out that this species of ants, which has been around for 140 million years or more, does multidimensional analysis of its market. And so by default, it turns out that the humans, smarter than ants, have been doing hypernomics since there have been humans.
Fascinating stuff. And you've also got patents for four-dimensional structures, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we've got this patent here for the first four-dimensional display of hypernomics using software. The patent office was first griping that we were trying to patent mathematics, and we suggested to them, no, we're patenting the display of mathematics. So what we do is we have a certain area in which we show the markets in this fashion here. We show them with a red demand plane over here, red showing the quantities going this way and the prices going this way. And so these will be the prices and quantities for a bunch of, in this case, business jets. And then over here, we show the value of the business jets relative to their value and their price. So the reason we got the patent is that this display recognizes that the demand is limited. So red kind of being a stoplight for how much you can have. And then green being go, you can keep adding value to a limit, the limit being the demand frontiers that come out of this. And so we finally got a patent based on the math that creates those kind of views so that you can actually, in the software, you can actually see what you're doing. And then when you make a solid print out of it, like I did there, you can actually literally get a feel for your market to figure out where open spaces in the market lie, where you could put a new product in, and by interpolation, you could actually discover that you can make something that nobody else has, but everybody wants. And that's kind of what we like to, that's our mantra, is make something that the market wants, doesn't have, and can afford.
Good mantra. Doug, we are getting close to commercial break, but before we break, why don't you tell the audience how they can connect with you if they want to learn more about you, and where can they get the book?
Yeah, you can go to the company website, which is hypernomics.com. That's hypernomics.com. And you can go through a bunch of the little vignettes that we've put up as blogs. They come on from my LinkedIn post at Doug Howarth on LinkedIn. And you can write us at info@hypernomics.com, or you can go to my personal website, which is doughowarth.com, or you can go off and find my book, Hypernomics Using Hidden Dimensions to Solve Unseen Problems. You can find it on the Wiley site, Barnes & Noble, or the Amazon site.
Sounds good. You can pretty much get it anywhere is what I heard. All right, Doug, you sit tight. Folks out there in the audience, don't go anywhere either. We'll be right back after we pay a few bills.
Big Flamingo Insurance, what do you want?
Yeah, can we get the auto insurance policy?
Anything else?
Can we add an extra driver?
Number form combo, your premium comes with pickup spot 2.
Okay.
When it comes to insurance, you don't have to sacrifice service to save.
Wait, this isn't even the right policy.
Upgrade to NJM and get the 5-star customer service you deserve with discounts you'll love.
Excuse me, Mr. Rollerbird?
No jingles or mascots, just great insurance. NJM. Get a quote today.
You can be confident choosing Farmers Insurance. There's no need to knock on wood.
Perfect.
This is an unnatural amount of natural light.
Thank you.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Hey, Jake from State Farm. I want that personal price plan. So how's this for personal? I draw mustaches on players' faces when they're asleep.
Coach Reed, you don't need to get that personal to get the State Farm personal price plan. It helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Oh.
Coach, it happened again.
I'm gonna get to the bottom of this.
Call or click to get a quote today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
She found it. The feeling of finding the psoriasis treatment she's been looking for. Sotyktu is the first of its kind once daily pill for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis for the chance at clear or almost clear skin. It's like the feeling of finding that outfit psoriasis tried to hide from you, or finding your swimsuit is ready for prime time. Dad, once daily Sotyktu is proven to get more people clearer skin than the leading pill. Don't take if you're allergic to Sotyktu. Serious reactions can occur. Sotyktu can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB. Serious infections, cancers including lymphoma, muscle problems, and changes in certain labs have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, liver or kidney problems, high triglycerides, or had a vaccine or plan to. Sotyktu is a TYK2 inhibitor. TYK2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Sotyktu has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. Ask your dermatologist about Sotyktu for clearer skin. So clearly you. Sotyktu.
Hi, my name is Dave, and I am Metro.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I am Metro.
Hi, my name is Josh, and I am Metro.
Hi, I'm George. I am Metro.
Hi, my name is Joe, and I am Metro.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm Metro.
Hello, my name is Seven, and I am Metro.
My name is Chris, and I am Metro.
I am Michael Barretto, President and Founder of Metropolis Passenger Logistics, and we are Metro.
And welcome back to Behind the Numbers. I'm Dave Bookbinder, and we are talking with Doug Howarth, who is not only CEO of Hypernomics, Inc., he's also the author of Hypernomics, Using Hidden Dimensions to Solve Unseen Problems. And as a patent holder for four-dimensional structures, in the first segment, Doug really helped to define how to think about the problems. But I want to, Doug, take you into the real world of how you're using it currently with your clients. And I know that you're using it, we'll call it at the upper end with large organizations like NASA, but this isn't just for that type of sophistication, if you will. It's also applicable to your local restaurant, for example.
Yeah. During COVID, out here in California, we were allowed, you remember this, that COVID ramped up in early 2020. And so out here in California, we were allowed to eat outside during COVID. And most of the restaurants here, they had pretty nice indoor dining rooms, but not many of them, had very nice patios or patios that were the same size. So we went to our local favorite hotspot, and they had a capacity of roughly 100 inside and something on the order of a third of that outside. And so we would go down to the restaurant. We would find ourselves on Friday and Saturday night being in these really long lines, trying to get in to get some food. And I noticed that they had an arrangement of tables that didn't match with the party size that came into the restaurant, which is to say they had several tables of 6 and several tables of 4 and very few tables of 2. And it works out in this particular restaurant that they have more parties of 2 than they have parties of 4 and 6. In fact, if you do the research nationally, you'd find out that nationally there's more than twice as many parties of 2 as there are parties of 4 going to restaurants. So I pulled the manager aside. We know her pretty well. I said, "Hey, Kayla, you want to make some more money here?" She goes, "Well, sure, Doug. What do I need to do?" I said, your average party size coming in here is smaller than your average table size. You need to take out some of the tables of 6 and 4 and replace them with tables of 2. And so she did that, and then 2 months later, her revenue shot up 25%. Same floor area, just a different rearrangement of the seating that allowed to have the more throughput. And so it's understanding that there's a certain demand curve for seats that you can discover and then use to your benefit to help a local restaurant out. So it was just as simple as that. It's a very simple idea, but it's not well understood universally.
Yes, then part of this conversation is to help this become more universally understood as a concept and as a way to really become a competitive advantage. So, Doug, I'm going to ask you to talk to the business owners and business leaders out there who are watching and listening and tell them how they can employ Hypernomics in strategy for a competitive advantage.
Yeah, again, the software that we've developed allows you to plot where you and your competitors lie in this competitive space over 4 dimensions. And again, it sounds kind of complicated, but it takes things you already know and then reassembles them into this different view. So, for example, when you're buying an electric car, for example, you know that you're buying range in horsepower. And so in the electric car market in 2013 here on this green side, every one of these dots represents where an electric car was relative to its range on this direction and its horsepower in this direction. And what the software lets you do is create a map that shows you where the open spaces in the market are. So the areas in which nobody's competing are areas that are bounded by products that are already selling, but they're open. In fact, Tesla used this to their advantage to put a whole bunch of new models into this region here. And then once you understand what the market is looking for relative to its value, then over on the demand side, you can figure out how the market's going to react, how many units you could possibly sell. There's this limit that the market creates for itself. This is called an upper demand frontier. And by knowing what this outer demand frontier is, that you can set the upper bound to what it is that you think might sell. Now, if you don't understand that there's an upper demand frontier, you could, as Ariane was an aerospace company trying to build a supersonic jet, they tried to exceed the upper demand frontier for their market, and they failed. And so in the process of doing that, the company folded, and they lost between $1 and $2 billion. So this is something that everybody can use once you understand the process of how to use it, because it's reflecting what everybody does in the market over time.
Yeah, and Doug, are investors using this in terms of thinking about how to invest in the stock market?
Yeah. In fact, we created our own fund. Thanks for that, Dave. And we find that the stock market behaves the same way. So this is the Dow 30 from 5 years and 1 week ago. This is the Dow 30. This is the 30 stocks that make that up. So this back then, this was Boeing here. Boeing was doing really well 5 years ago. This is before they had all their problems. Then you have Microsoft and Apple down there. And over here, these are the features that are holding the stock market up. So there's in this particular case, the market really liked return on assets and they liked earnings per share. And so what we do is we take a bunch of these different features. Those are only 2 features of a stock. We take up to 6 or 7 or 8, and then jam them all together and find out how the market's reacting. So stocks that are below this plane may be undervalued, or there may be other features that are involved. And stocks that are above the plane may be overvalued. So what we do is we try to find undervalued stocks, and we take several cuts at this, and then what we do is we go ahead and buy the stocks that are undervalued and wait for them to go up. And so when we started this fund in February of 2020, we indexed ourselves to 1, and we were only buying stocks from the S&P 500 and only going long so that people could understand it. By the way, this fund isn't open to the public. I got to say this, the SEC doesn't come down on us. It's a private fund. But we went from 1 to 2, which is time to double. We doubled in less than 50 months. And at the time we doubled, which is just a couple of months ago, we were doing 1.9 times as well as the S&P 500, only using stocks from that. And statistically, the chance of that happening due solely to chance was less than 1 in 1 quadrillion.
Wow. Tell the audience how they can find you, Doug, and where they can grab the book.
Yeah, you can find me personally on my personal website, doughowarth.com. We have more information over at the company website, which is hypernomics.com. That's hypernomics.com. You'll find there several blogs that show you the individual vignettes that we've created to make it easier for you to understand how this stuff works. And you can also find my book on hypernomics using hidden dimensions to solve unseen problems. You can find it on the Wiley website, Barnes & Noble's website, or the Amazon website.
Thank you for that. So I want to talk to you about the future before we have to wind up here.
Okay.
Maybe at some point your stock market investing algorithm will be available to the public, and folks will be able to take advantage of that. But what's the future look like for hypernomics? I think you had mentioned something to me about perhaps showing up in some universities.
Yeah, we've got some interest from university students. We actually had before COVID a university seminar on an extension university, a big one here locally. We want to try to get back in front of universities. We believe that modern economics is actually a subset of what we call hypernomics. Modern economics thinks there's the law of supply and demand, and it does apply to commodities. There's a single point equilibrium, which is what the law of supply and demand works out for you. And that works out for something like gold or silver or iron ore. But as we saw with the business jets and the electric cars, iron ore goes into those, and they have a whole bunch of products that are doing just fine there. And so you have to use the law of value and demand to describe them. So we see hypernomics pushing itself into industry, schools, government, and making the world a better place 5-10 years out from now.
That's fantastic. I wish you all the best, and hopefully folks in the audience will remember that they heard about it here first. Wouldn't that be fun? Doug, unfortunately, we are out of time here, but I can't thank you enough for joining us today on Behind the Numbers.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a great one, and I really appreciate being on it. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Gang, we've been talking with Doug Howarth, who's the CEO of Hypernomics and also author of Hypernomics Using Hidden Dimensions to Solve Unseen Problems. Definitely check that out and stay tuned for more on that as we go forward here. Thank you, Emma, out there somewhere, for running the board today. Great job running the program. And thank you out there in the audience, wherever you're tuning in from in more than 100 countries. Really appreciate your support of the program. My name is Dave Bookbinder, and I'm the one that my clients turn to when they want to know what their most important assets are worth. You can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. And that's all we have for today, folks. We'll see you next time on Behind the Numbers. Take care, everybody.